Hypertrophy, and today's subject is what do beginners get wrong in the gym. So, first of all, if you are a beginner in the gym, congratulations, you came to the right place. In terms of just like what will make your mental health better, what will make your physical health better, etc. Any movement, even if you're not building 50 bajillion pounds of muscle with it, is good movement. And you will thank yourself later in your late 20s, 30s and 40s, 50s, 60s, 900s. You're gonna do great. That being said, you want to build some muscle. You want to get fucking swole. This is what you need to learn. Well, these are the few things you need to learn about. The traps that get you into a state of not doing shit, but wasting time. Well, not wasting time, because again, any movement is good movement, but in the case of hypertrophy and strength training, potentially wasting a little bit of time. Which, by the way, even if you are, there's nothing wrong with it because you learn. Any time, quote unquote, wasted in the gym, I mean, you could still say you're learning something. Because I've wasted quite a few years of training, but that's only gotten me to such a deep level of knowledge within certain subjects. And by deep, I'm not saying like I am the next Chris Beardsley or whatever, but I am most certainly someone who knows very much about my niche issues. So let's begin. First of all, static rep workouts, throw them in the bin. If anyone's telling you 30 reps of this squat and then 40 reps of that squat, why? You can only do so much with good form and good technique. And that so much is dependent on your muscle strength. And it shouldn't be dictated by an external goal, in the sense that if you have the strength to do 10 reps, you shouldn't then force yourself to do 50, just because a piece of paper said so. Likewise, if you can do 30 push-ups in a row, clean, pristine technique, and the thing's telling you to do 10, you got yourself a problem. What you need to do is have a rep range, because you're going to evolve. You're going to have days where maybe you're not as full of energy. Maybe you underrate a little bit, so maybe you lose a rep every now and then when you're in the intermediate stage. Perhaps you're just not able to keep up with the form and the technique if you're going to also try and get this arbitrary number. There's nothing special about the number 30. There's nothing special about the number 10. There's nothing special about the number 15. What is special is stimulus, and that is achieved by getting the muscle that you're working as close to mechanical or technical, or actually probably better yet, just general muscular failure, which is when you push so hard, but depending on where the exercise is inherently most challenging, you see like a sudden slow down of the rep. No matter how hard you push, that is what you're looking for, and that can be done with a certain weight for 10, 5. You got a gum, so sorry if you see the gum and you're disgusted about, I don't know, 5, 20, 30 reps. But just because you reach 30 when you could have done 50 doesn't mean that you necessarily gain the stimulus of the 50 just because you hit the 30, because numbers are just numbers. What matters is how close you are to muscular failure to be able to achieve the stimulus in order to be able to get that muscle to be stimulated, aka what you want, so that you can grow. Okay, so that your muscles give the signal to your brain like, we're fucking dying here. This guy just beat us up. Help! Help! We're in a situation where we have to adapt. Not necessarily like the muscle breakdown theory, because that might actually be another point I'll get into. But yeah, you don't need to do specifically 30 reps of this, 40 reps of that. Achieve a proximity to failure as close to it as safely possible. Push hard, right? Damn, my hair looks kind of nice like this. Lucky. I mean, clap like this, but yeah, it's tied up. But yeah, push hard. And if you get 15 reps, if you get 17 reps, if you get 5 reps, if you get 8 reps, as long as the technique is good, then you're golden. And I specify this because I got this urge to just add weight or add reps as fast as humanly possible each time, every week, because I thought this was what's needed, right? After a certain point, you just can't. And this actually leads on to my next point, right? You're going to have times where you're not going to necessarily add a rep every week, especially when you get to the intermediate stage. Now, progression is, after a certain point, dependent on muscular growth. So the muscle pushes up your numbers. That's awesome. That's fire as hell. You can make quick strength gains in the beginning of both your lifting journey and your new training cycle because you're neurologically getting adapted to the movement. I mean, if you're detrained, you can get neurological adaptations within the day. You re-figure out how to... It's basically learning the motion. Problem is, once you get over that hump of trying to... once you get over that really fast, like, amazing period where, oh my god, I'm adding 2 reps every week with the same form, you might just slow down. And that's when you need to tell yourself it's okay. It's okay. Now, we all want the fastest rate of progression possible, but we don't want it to be at the sacrifice of form. Now, form doesn't have to be Mikey's Rattel 50 trillion seconds down and then a 1 second up concentric. It's going to be individual. It just has to hit the muscle good. You don't necessarily have to feel the muscle so specifically because you don't have the muscle to feel. So, just make sure that biomechanically, at least, you're good. Okay? Make sure that when you're hinging and you're not doing a spinal flexion, that sort of thing. You're adducting your arm instead of, freaking doing the Elon emotes when you're trying to hit your chest, right? Unless you're doing your upper chest. In that case, it's probably not the worst. But even then, you probably want like a horizontal factor, a horizontal addition, horizontal, just something horizontal, like a 45-degree sort of direction, okay? Now, let me just... I love this melon-flavored gum from Trident, but it literally disintegrates in your mouth after like half an hour. It sucks so bad. Yeah, when you get into the intermediate stage, don't do what I did, which was constantly swap exercise, constantly change the form. You have to stick to the same form, the same technique. And the same reason as to why you shouldn't follow static reps is also the reason why you shouldn't sweat when you have slow progression. Because if you're doing something to be able to get an arbitrary rep count or whatever past your capabilities, you will fuck up your form. And that means you lessen the stimulus, you lessen the focus, and therefore you'll eventually get to the point where you realize, I've been really fucking up my form. And you have to relearn the movement again. That's like weeks of progress, like, gone. It's not completely wasted time, but you have to catch this early. This doesn't mean that you have to, halt all progression forever. It doesn't mean that you have to be so anal about form to a point where you are literally not doing anything with it. This being said, you will have a time where you will progress maybe once every month. For some people, if you really love this game, you'll do once every 2 months. Now, I personally would say if this is what you're experiencing within your first year, we have a bit of a problem. And in that case, we can address stuff like volume, frequency, intensity, etc. Just general execution, sleep, recovery, whatever. Make sure those are dialed in, and then we can focus that. But assuming you have that phase where it's like, whoa, 1 rep every week, one every week, oh my goodness, you will slow down and it's fine. You can't cheat it. You're not a genetic phenom, so calm your tits. Thirdly, volume. I am so sick to death of people just blankly saying 10 to 20 sets. Now, 10 to 20 sets might be good in certain people and in certain muscle groups, in certain cases. However, many people don't know how to execute with good form and good intensity with the reps that they're given, with the sets they're given. In fact, if you really force up the sets, I've noticed this myself, you might end up actually shortchanging your form to be able to be less hurt. It gives you less pain, basically. You'll half rep your squats so that you can save up your energy and your strength for the next one and the next one. And then you don't do that. You push, you warm up a lot, but then you push hard. And you just see how much you need to progress the next week or the next predictable time period. For some people it will be 2 weeks, for some people it will be 4, for some people it will literally be the next workout. This is what you need to experiment with. I personally am a fan of 6 to 12 to start with, but honestly you can get quite good results off of 4 to 8. This being said, I think this would also depend on your frequency. I am a big fan of high frequency at this point because you get so much practice and you're able to really bump up the progression for a little bit of time because you're actually able to learn the movement so fast. If you're just trying to cram in all your practice in one day, it's not going to work. It's like an exam. You have to research, you have to revise over an extended period of time, but also regularly. When you're just trying to cram in everything in one day, you're not going to absorb shit, and your muscles and your joints and your general everything is kind of the same when it comes to the gym. So I would also suggest 2 to 3 times a week is great. That's why I personally suggest 3 times full body for most beginners. At least 2. Okay, at least 2. But yeah, we're getting off on a bit of a tangent. I will say also related to the volume thing, sweating. Oh, I just had a good sweat. I'm fucking drenched in everything. Okay, but what are your numbers on the bench? What are your numbers on the squat? Did you improve your form? Oh no, I just went in for a sweat, man. And listen, if you want to just do this for HIIT, just like get a little sweat, do a little whatever, you're doing some cardio, that's totally fine as long as it fits with your goals. But if you're trying to get into hypertrophy training, you aren't really burning that many calories with weight training. You're burning some, that's for sure. But you're best to just stick to a decent rep range like 6 to 10, maybe 8 to 12. Maybe even up to 30 in certain cases for certain muscles, especially if you're like me with a stupid pair of calves where your left foot is always dying. Like, okay, fine, I won't do 6 reps on the calf raise, you dickhead. I'll go to do high reps, but if you're purposely trying to mix the two, cardio and heavy weights, like as if it's CrossFit, you're gonna run into some issues like recovery because it's highly fatiguing, and I'm not a fatigue fearmonger. I fucking hate it when people who are in the gym are like, oh no, the big fatigue monster, mother humper, we are here to get fatigued. Do you understand? Some fatigue is inevitable, but we don't need to accelerate the amount we have already in the gym. That's just not the case. We don't need more. We got stress. We got other things in our. We got shitty sleep. We got insomnia. That's enough for fatigue. Damn it. Anyway, let's see. Okay, so I think I've actually discussed everything. So to sum it all up, make sure that you are not just going for an arbitrary number of reps written on some page by some dude guy who's like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna do it just because people are gonna think I'm smart because they think, oh wow, I've just discovered the secret. No, he didn't discover shit. 15 reps isn't magical. 30 reps isn't magical. What is magical is getting close to failure. Developing a sweat's cool, but it's not necessary. Volume is only needed for progression, and if you are beating your joints up because some guy on steroids is telling you that's the best way of gaining muscle, then I suggest blocking him on all social media or whatever. You listen to your own body, and also just listen to log yourself, log your workouts. But that being said, and I'm summarizing it, your workouts won't linearly just go up. You won't forever gain 5 pounds. If you did that, you'd be benching 1,000 pounds by the end of 2-3 years. And that's just not going to be the case, and that's totally fine. So, just be patient with yourself. Be kind to yourself. And remember that as long as you're not, within your first year and seeing a stall of, fucking 700 years, then you're fine. And also, if you're on a cut, eventually your progress will stall, and that's part of the process too. But if you're on a bulk and you're gaining sustainably after your first 2 years, 1 rep every 3 weeks, one rep every 2, with the good form, the good sexy form that's gotten you this big, awesome. Make sure you got the movements down pat, and then everything will take care of itself, because the muscle actually builds the muscle. The muscle builds the strength to build the muscle. Well, no, actually, the muscle gets the stimulus, eventually gets the muscle to eventually get your strength up. It feeds it. Instead of just having all the strength come from neurological adaptations. There will be some part of that, but after a certain point, it will be muscle that will get you stronger, and that is sick. I look back at the time when I had slow progression, and that was actually when I grew the fastest. I wish I stuck to that. I regret not doing that, because I've been chasing all sorts of bullshit. Anyway, that is it for me.